Good evening, everyone, and members of the public and members who are viewing us. I'm calling to order this schedule, Operations Management, Budget, and Governmental Accountability, OMBGA Committee meeting to order of Wednesday, April 27, 2022. Our agenda today, we will have Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications and the Department of Public Work presenting to the council body as we go through the budget process. And I am going to introduce my council colleagues. To my right is Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti, Councilman LeBron, Councilwoman Surgeon. To my left is Councilman Gale and Councilman Josh Michtam. So without further ado, Ms. Webster, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Whoop, can you hear me okay?
Do you want to push that chair over and sit right here next to me?
No.
Or do you want to sit on the dais?
Doesn't matter. You see how comfortable it is?
It's on now. Whoop, there we go, not close enough. Okay. It's wonderful to see everyone in person finally.
I know.
Almost couldn't remember how to get here.
It feels nice to be back. So we also have joining us as staff support, our town clerk, Noel McGregor. Also from the town clerk's office is Mr. Eric Lusa, and Councilwoman Tiana Hercules has also joined us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having us tonight from the Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications. I'm Susan Webster. I'm the director of the department, and I have with me Joseph Pizzuto, who is the deputy director of the department. I will go through my presentation. Hopefully y'all have copies of that. They say they save the best for last. I'm not sure what that means with me going first, but here we go. Can you raise the volume a little bit so that I can hear her a little bit more, please? How's that better? Perfect. So we'll start with our mission statement for the department. The City of Hartford Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications core mission is to provide high-quality emergency services communications to police, fire, and emergency medical services personnel and the City of Hartford citizens. We will carry out this mission by receiving calls for service, dispatching the appropriate resources, tracking and coordinating information flow and resources, initiating records for all emergency events, and enhancing the effectiveness, efficiency, coordination, and interoperability of emergency services providers. This is an overview of our organizational chart for the department. We're a department of approximately 61 strong, with myself as the director, Joe being our deputy director. We also have an information services department. We have our administrative department and our alarms division within the Department of Emergency Services. So I'd like to share an overview of our calls for service, which is the most important job here in our department. So I've provided with you for fiscal year 2019, 2020, and 21, so you can see the changes that we've had over the past several years. And you will see a slight changes in those numbers, but we weren't significantly impacted by the COVID emergency. So for the last fiscal year, we received 127,000 911 calls. We almost doubled that in non-emergency calls for service at 306,000 for a total of 433,000 phone calls that came into the communication center over the year. This represents the calls that were dispatched by each of those services that we dispatch for. So law enforcement, we dispatched 142,000 calls for service. Fire medical calls, 22,000 calls for service. Fire suppression calls were 7,000 calls for service, and ambulance responses were 36,000 calls for service. And in totality, that was 208,000 calls for service dispatched out of our 911 center. The one thing that you will note on this particular slide is that in the year 2020, the police calls were 275,000. Those were related to directed patrols that they were doing during the pandemic, and we were tracking those directed patrols. So these were officers that went out to specific areas within the city, and they were assigned case numbers. So that's why you see that influx of calls there for the year 2020. And I also reported that in my presentation last year. Some of the strategic initiatives for the department this year is upgrading and replacing the public safety radio infrastructure. This has been a project that we've been working on for several years. It's currently in the RFP process, and we are hoping to have this project completed in the second quarter of fiscal year 2023. We're also looking to computerize our call intake process and our quality assurance programs to more effectively process and review calls from the call intake. So we will have a person from our supervisory staff assigned to this role, which is currently budgeted and has been budgeted for many years. But we want to computerize this so we can more effectively handle that call intake process and the quality improvement program. And we continue to look at our hiring program and our training program within the department, and we want to restructure that entire process to more effectively staff the communication center. This slide is showing you a budget comparison from fiscal year 2022 to 2023. The major increases that you're seeing in this budget is from our computer-aided dispatch and records management system, where we implemented last year, and now we're going to be paying a service charge on an annual basis for those particular programs. So that's where you'll see the main increase to this budget. The overall budget is $4.4 million, and it reflects a 9.4% increase compared to the previous fiscal year. So other areas of focus and highlights are that non-personnel operating costs remained relatively unchanged from the previous year, with the exception of those service contracts that I had previously mentioned for CAD and RMS. There were minimal salary increases that reflected contractual increases per the union contracts. And we did also request an additional full-time equivalent to handle FOI requests within the department. We are seeing an influx of FOI requests, and it's become very taxing on the department. Therefore, we requested a full-time equivalent to handle those tasks so we could make sure that all of those requests got out in a timely fashion. And that was 9 quick slides. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has for us.
Are there any questions from my council colleagues? Councilman Sanchez?
Good evening, Director Webster. Thank you for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions. And my first question here on page 23-2, we have adopted in 2020 5 positions, but now we're moving up 1 position, correct? Which will make a total of 6. And that's the first line for administration. Then here, out of the general fund, we added another position from 51 to 52, so that we're hiring 2 extra.
If I understand what you're looking at, page 23-2 from the budget book, the recommended budget book.
Yes.
And I believe that you're looking in the second category under full-time positions and FTE summary. where you're seeing 5 positions in fiscal year 2022,
Right.
and then 6 in 2023?
Correct.
Yes, so that is the additional position that we requested to do the FOI requests that come in from, well, we get a lot from the police department and from the fire department, FOI requests from attorneys, a lot of stuff from the court system, and we estimate that we're doing approximately 40 hours per week to handle these requests. So that's what that change is indicative of.
Okay, and then on the subject of the FOI, what's the percentage in increase for FOIs from the last couple of years?
I don't have that exact number. I can certainly get that for you. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of our data, and we found that out when we were doing some research on this position. We lost the data when we had the breach and lost all that information that was stored on the city server. So we had difficulty pulling a lot of the data. So I can't say how many it's increased by, but we can give you some estimates. I can certainly research that. But we have 2 people in high management positions who are the only ones, Joe being one of them, and Mike Bruce, who's a senior project manager, that are handling all of those FOI requests.
Okay, thank you. Another question. So according to this, we have a total of 61 positions,
Correct.
correct? Out of those 61 positions, how many are vacant?
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that, because and I was going to look on this sheet here that our analyst, Corey, was kind enough to print for me. But today we did an exercise because we were doing some interviews for full-time dispatchers. And currently we have 15 vacancies within the dispatch center. I can tell you that we are aggressively recruiting dispatchers and supervisors. We're working with both law enforcement and the fire department on recruitment. We made 3 offers just today. We made 3, I want to say 2 weeks ago. They're in backgrounds right now. We had 2 start yesterday. We have 2 starting next week. So we have been very aggressively hiring dispatchers.
All right, and you said 15 vacancy within just the dispatch department,
That's correct.
including supervisor?
No, we have 1 vacancy for supervisors. I'm talking about ETDs, emergency telecommunications dispatchers.
Okay, now, do you have an estimate of what's the cost in OT?
What is the cost in overtime?
How much overtime are we looking at? Okay, I think I found it here. I'm not sure.
In an effort not to give you the wrong number, Councilman, I can certainly get those numbers to you. I have a spreadsheet here, but because we have first shift, second shift, third shift, and they're broken down into different areas, so I just want to make sure I get you the right number. So I am happy, if it's okay, I can get you that information.
Okay, and then just my last question, how many positions are seasonal? Do we have any seasonal positions?
We do not have seasonal positions, but we do have per diem employees, and those are what we track under seasonal positions. And those are, most of our per diem employees are those who have retired from the department, and they come back and they work on a per diem basis. They don't have a regular schedule, and they work in call intake.
Okay, how many of those hirees?
I believe we have 6 on staff
per
right
diem?
now, but I can get you the exact number.
And how often do we call them back? Is it for a 6-month term?
No, per diem employees, we have an MOU with Local 1716, so they are permanent per diem employees. They are not, but we just track them under the seasonal line item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. Councilman LeBron, followed by Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti.
Hello, Director. Thank you for your
Good evening.
presentation. So in terms of the FOIs, I realize that there is now a need for a full-time position. And Councilman Sanchez asked about a percentage increase. Do we have last year's total number of FOI requests?
We can certainly research that for you. I believe we do.
And how were those FOI requests handled last year?
We handled that with the staff that we currently have, but unfortunately, it was taking away from their other duties.
Okay. And with FOI requests, what is our normal response rate to the FOI requests? Do we have an average response rate?
I can get that for you.
Okay.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Thank you. In terms of our call volumes to emergency services, how are we comparable to other cities, meaning towns that are equivalent in population? Are we above average, below average?
We are the largest communication center in the state of Connecticut,
Okay.
As far as call volume is concerned, and arguably we are the largest in all of New England. And the reason for that is there are communication centers that are not consolidated like we are. Boston, for instance, they don't have one communication center under one roof like we do in Hartford. So we're arguably the largest in all of New England.
And do you anticipate, and through you, Madam President, I'm sorry, do you anticipate the iHeart team reducing that volume of numbers in terms of their categorization of 911 calls?
I don't anticipate it reducing the number of calls, but I do believe that it will reduce the number of responses.
Okay.
We'll be able to send those HEART team responders out to calls in lieu of police, fire, and EMS.
Thank you. And the last question in regards to the iHeart team, I was looking through here and I don't see any reference to it. How do you feel like the iHeart team is going to impact your fiscal year 2023? Is it going to, more spending, less spending? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to affect our budget in any way. At this point, we don't believe we have to add any additional staff to the communication center. They're processing the calls as they always have, but instead of sending it over to the police dispatcher or the fire dispatcher, we send it over to the HEART team dispatcher, which is not in our center.
So I guess I just wanted to make sure for my own clarity, I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit dense, they would still be populated as a call to you guys, right? And we're just reducing the responses.
Correct. So we still put it into the computer-aided dispatch system. We collect all of the data. We follow a flow chart to make sure that we're sending the correct response. And they also sign on the radio so we can track them and make sure that they're responding in an adequate amount of time. And we can run reports on that as well.
Thank you. And no more questions.
Thank you.
System Majority Rossetti.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, thank you to you and your department. I know you have everybody has a tough job.
Thank you.
And you spoke about being first, so this isn't just per you, but you're first. So I'm going to ask this because I saw it a couple times in the budget book. So don't take it, just for you. So I see, and I think this is just something for us to think about, maybe. And you mentioned it further in your presentation. When we do the strategic plan initiatives, from year to year, I notice they're the same. And that may mean they're the same, but I believe there's something that happens. So I would think, particularly if it's someone past us, past the public, and anyone else, maybe because you did say with the first one and something about 2023, maybe we want to think in general, because there's other departments that these say the same thing, that we might want to put something about what's happened with them. Because I know in my work life, if I put in the same thing every year, it would be not acceptable. So I know things happen, so maybe we want to just update those strategic plan initiatives some. And again, not just you just happen to be first, like you said.
I appreciate the information.
I'm going to ask this from everybody also, but you just happen to be first. What, and it may be somewhere, but I don't see it. What's the percentage of Hartford residents in your staffing? Of the 61?
I don't have that number, but I do believe that's something that Human Resources is reporting on.
Oh, okay. By department? Okay. And two more. On 23-4, page. Number of calls dispatched, number of police calls dispatched. Do you happen to know in 2021 actual why there was such a spike?
Yes. So the police department had an initiative that they called Directed Patrol, and we were tracking that in the computer dispatch system. So they weren't actually responding to a call, but they would go to a specific area, and once they're there, they would tell us they were on Directed Patrol, so we wouldn't use them for a low acuity call, and they would patrol that particular area. So that's what they were doing during the pandemic time, and we were tracking them, so that's why that call volume seems to spike, but it wasn't because of an additional call volume. And those are all officer initiated as well.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, Council President, because my colleagues have asked, and I'm sure others, do you feel there's a common theme for the FOI requests, or is it just across the board?
No, it's across the board. The police, some of them are FOI requests. We get a lot of stuff in the courts that are looking for 911 calls or looking for the audio tape of transmissions from law enforcement or fire. Excuse me. But and a lot of attorneys they'll handle the FOI requests or send in the FOI requests.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Majority Rossetti. Councilman Gale?
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening. Just picking up on that last question, because I was going to ask something similar. I was wondering if it was the press that was asking for FOI. So it sounds like it's more attorneys.
Excuse me, I have a tickle. Yes, it's mostly attorneys with the FOI requests in the court system.
Councilman LeBron?
And returning to the subject of vacancies for a minute, I understand that in your total department there's presently 60 positions, and I know you mentioned that there were 15 vacancies at dispatch and 1 supervisor. That would be 16. Is that the total number of vacancies out of those 60 positions?
We don't have any other vacancies, so yes, all of the other positions in the other divisions are filled.
And if you could identify 1 or 2 things that would be the impediments to hiring, are you able to tell us what is preventing you from filling these positions?
Staffing shortages isn't just a Hartford issue. It's not even a Connecticut issue. It's a nationwide struggle within communication centers. There's dispatch centers that are shutting down across the country because they just can't get people to want to work the job. I think the pandemic has certainly made it worse, but it was an issue well before COVID struck. So we're trying to change things up a little bit. We are, Thea, actually, Ms. Montanez requested that we meet with one of the schools that are doing a public safety program to add communications along with fire and law enforcement. So we are struggling, but I think that we're doing a really good job at reaching out and trying to get those folks to apply.
And last area for me, I see that you indicated in your presentation, if I'm not mistaken, that you were, or somewhere in here, you're getting looks like you're anticipating substantially more grant dollars this year than last year.
Correct. We love grant dollars. So the Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications through the state of Connecticut provides a 911 grant, and they have changed their formula for that 911 grant, and we were very fortunate to be now receiving additional funds. All of those grant funds go directly towards our salaries.
I'm sorry, they're directed towards what?
Towards our salaries. And you will see in my, if you have a copy of my presentation, in the org chart, it does show how many dispatchers and there's 1 project manager that are funded through that grant.
Yeah, I do see that, and I see it in the budget book that there were 9 positions last year that were funded, grant funded, and 9 positions this year that are grant funded. But I see that we've got about $700,000 more dollars. So I'm assuming they didn't all get raises to eat up that $700,000. I'm wondering.
They would like to.
I'm sure. But I'm wondering what else we're using the grant.
So we work with OMBG, and what they will do is they will transfer those dollars so they make sure they all come out of salaries. We don't use those dollars for anything else. However, they also have a capital expenditure grant through the state of Connecticut, and that also increased in dollars, and that is for 911 equipment. And we have to do a 50% match from the city side in order to get that funding. So it could be utilized for that as well.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gale. Councilwoman Hercules, did you have any questions for Ms. Webster? I did not. Councilman Mixtum? No, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Susan, for that great presentation. I have a couple of questions. So, being understaffed, right? What would you say is the percentage of the wait time that you have on your board when you have a 911 call?
So it depends on, I don't have the exact percentage, but it depends on the type of call that it is. So especially for law enforcement. So there's no wait time for EMS or fire. Those go out immediately. Let me rephrase that answer. Answering the call and dispatching the call, the staffing shortage does not prohibit us from dispatching units to those calls.
Right, but let's say it's a Friday night, it's a busy night. Let's take, for example, the night where last year we had these what we referred to flash mobs, right? Where you have the city calling in. So let's say you have 30 people calling in. And what have you seen has been that wait time that a person is on hold on that 911 call before dispatcher comes on?
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So I just got a report today from the state of Connecticut, or maybe it was yesterday, and we are answering 84% of 911 calls within 10 seconds.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. My other question is, what programs have you installed for any traumatic event that one of your dispatchers goes through? Do you have something set in place to help them deal with trauma or various calls that they get through the 911?
So we do have an EAP program through the city of Hartford that we utilize on a regular basis for staff members that might have an issue relative to a call. Our supervisors are very, very good at knowing what's going on the dispatch floor and identifying if a dispatcher is having a problem. It's easy to catch the issues when you've got a very large structure fire and multiple injuries. The calls that we have more difficulty identifying are the one call taker that takes a single call that really affects them and we don't pick up on it. So, but our entire staff is like family. They're very good to each other. They talk through those calls, but we will definitely refer them to EAP. Law enforcement will also invite us to some of their EAP events if they're having an issue after a traumatic incident as well.
Okay. Thank you. So that concludes our questions for you. Again, thank you, and thank you to your team for the great job that you do.
Thank you, and we appreciate you all.
You're welcome. And next on our agenda is Department of Public Works. Director Looney, you and your staff are up.
Councilwoman. You good?
I don't know where he is.
Saida said he was going to be late. He was in a meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam President and members of the City Council. We're here to present the DPW budget for this coming fiscal year 23. Again, I'm Michael Looney, Director of Public Works. With me is my Deputy Director, Patrell Mailer, and we'll be going through our presentation in the course of about 20 minutes or so, and then be happy to take any and all questions that you may have on our proposed budget or the presentation in general. So our mission statement at Public Works, I'll read very quickly. This is sort of the guidelines that we use to try to govern our actions every day and the work that we do and how we perform it for the residents of the city. We're dedicated to excellence, integrity, and stewardship. We enhance the safety and welfare and livability of our community by providing and managing infrastructure and services for parks and open spaces, city roads, solid waste, flood control, forestry, management, traffic control, and public facilities. We develop and manage the design and construction of municipal projects. We demonstrate a high degree of competency and provide services effectively and efficiently. We prepare for today but plan for tomorrow while pursuing innovation in operations and administration. We are dependable and responsible, and we highly respect and value the public's trust. We are available and responsive and dedicated to inclusiveness and accessibility, and we are committed to respectful, open, and transparent processes, and we bring people together for common cause and purpose. We preserve the health and safety of employees and the community, and we try to protect public investments and are fiscally accountable. A brief overview of our department organization. As part of this proposed budget, we will, with the addition of 6 positions, we would have a total of 217 folks working in Public Works. Right now we have a budgeted total of 211. This chart gives the distribution of administration, which is just under under 10, 9 individuals. About 40 folks in facilities, 12 in engineering, 5 as part of our traffic team, a little over 30 for streets, and 15 in our fleet maintenance and equipment services division. Our waste and recycling division would be approaching 50. Parks are about 34 employees, and then flood, architecture, forestry, and blight remediation team compiling the rest of the positions. It's actually, we have so much going on at Public Works at any given time. It is difficult to try to distill everything down into a PowerPoint presentation, but we've tried to hit some of the important items that we've done so far in fiscal year 2022 for our different divisions. Facilities, our staff and facilities continue to play an important role in the city's COVID-19 response. Providing an array of different logistical support tasks and cleaning activities, distribution of PPE, and things of that nature. We've completed several LED conversion projects, notably at City Hall, our equipment services structure, as well as the heavy equipment shop for the fire department and our salt dome. We've replaced heating systems in a couple of facilities, such as the Willie Ware Recreation Center. Similar to what we did at the Keeney Park Golf Course in a previous year, we've completed the electrical work at Goodwin Golf Course at the barn there, the cart barn, that will enable us to deploy an electric cart fleet as opposed to a gasoline-powered cart fleet in the relatively near future. And of course, our core function in facilities is the daily maintenance, the custodial services, and the systems repair for all of our municipal facilities that house our various departments and all of our employees. Engineering and architecture, there is a tremendous list of projects that are either in the planning phases, in design, under construction, or nearing completion. Again, too lengthy to go into complete detail about, but some of our high points of this year we've helped complete along with the Hartford Public Library, the new Park Street branch library. We are now in the process of completing construction of the Phase 2 improvements in the Colt Park project and designing and bidding Phase 3 improvements. Down at Pope Park, construction is well underway with the new T-ball field that's being built there. Our pavement maintenance program, again, is rolling out as we've started milling and paving in the last few weeks, and we're looking to address about 44 streets this coming season. The construction work, substantial construction work of replacement of the Park Street sidewalks is about completed, and we're working with HPD and some of their vendors with assisting with the security camera upgrades that are going on along Park Street. Our Coltsville Phase 2 streetscape improvements project is also well underway, as is our Weston Street, Jennings Street intersection project that's going to involve both the geometry improvements at that intersection as well as signal upgrades. And Firehouse number 11 on Sisson Avenue, we're doing a complete renovation of that structure, and that's also progressing substantially, and hopefully will be in the completion phase soon. We have a number of Hartford Trust Fund projects that we're working on. Bushnell Park sidewalks. We've just about completed the east side of the park. We have some punch list items that are still being done, but then we'll be proceeding on to the west side of the park on the other side of the arch this year. We're in the process of trying to rebid the Goodwin Park Golf Course irrigation project, which is a substantial undertaking, as well as doing pond dredging at the Bushnell Park Pond. We have a number of fuel storage tanks, which over the last couple of years we've been working on either repairing or removing and managing that inventory effectively going forward. We've been undertaking environmental compliance activities, such as monitoring the stormwater quality of the DPW yard, and just working on training for all of our staff in the different DPW divisions about the importance of environmental compliance. And again, a long list of capital projects, which I believe will be discussed in depth at the CIP presentation later in the budget season. But some of the important things that we're trying to move forward or have under construction include the transfer station scale improvements, the Maple Avenue, Franklin Avenue streetscape improvements, Bushnell Park Pump House Gallery improvements, and we're working on completing the field improvements with some lighting at the Hartford Public High School property. Traffic has been a big area of focus for us in this fiscal year. We're bidding out several significant signalization projects around the city. As I mentioned before, Weston Street, Jennings Street intersection is underway. The Bosey Barlow Bridge repair project should be ready to commence shortly, as well. Along with that is the repaving project for Main Street and downtown. We're still working on with the mayor's office on expanding our community outreach efforts in addressing these traffic-related issues, attending NRZ meetings, responding to resident concerns and complaints about the dangerous driving behavior that we've been seeing around basically in all neighborhoods of the city. Every NRZ meeting I go to, this is usually one of the first, if not the first, item that is raised as an issue of concern for our residents. And also we're continuing to go around replacing damaged traffic control boxes and improving our traffic signage, removing outdated signs, upgrading them, and making sure we have all of the proper signage in place. Our streets division this year has been working hard on the pothole situation. The pothole patching has been difficult this year. We've had a significant number of potholes as a result of some of the weather conditions. But we do have what's called a hot box that we purchased, I believe, last year. That's enabled us to do work during the winter when in the past we weren't able to do that. We have a second hot box now. We're getting a trailer for it, and that's going to enable us to dispatch 2 crews to do pothole patching, which should increase the speed in which we can respond to complaints and 311 tickets. We're looking at different areas that need street repair work for this coming construction season. Our street sweeping program is back up and running. This is both our sweepers going behind the sanitation vehicles as they work their routes, but also third shift sweeping of our major corridors, which, when working in coordination with the new ambassadors program we have for litter control and beautification of the corridors, is I think going to work out really well this year. So we're excited about that. Of course, one of our big responsibilities in the colder part of the year is the management of snow plowing and salting during our winter weather events. We had 12 winter weather events this year, only 2 of which were what I would call major events. But on top of all of these, we also had numerous instances where we had to go out and apply salt on a night when there was the threat of freezing rain, or we had temperatures drop below freezing after we had a regular rain event. So that did occupy a lot of our time and effort this winter. And the mix of precipitation that we're seeing, rather than just the straight snowfall, has also been a challenge. Our fleet equipment services division continues to provide efficient repair services, not just for DPW vehicles, of course, but also our HPD fleet of cruisers and other motor vehicles, as well as all of the smaller cars and light trucks that our different divisions around the city utilize. And we're working constantly to try to purchase new vehicles and equipment. This year we were able to get different pieces for the streets, parks, and waste and recycling divisions. And as part of this budget, we're proposed to get several more pieces as well. For waste and recycling, one of those major things that has occurred in the department this year is the transition away from MIRA for our waste and recycling disposal services to Murphy Road Recycling through a competitive bidding process. Murphy Road came in with a tip fee of $103 for fiscal year 23. MIRA, I believe, it was their final tip fee offer for fiscal year 23 was going to be $111 a ton. So as a result, we'll be able to save probably over $260,000 in tip fees for this coming fiscal year. The schedule of tip fee increases is also over the next 5 years, because this is a 5-year agreement with Murphy Road Recycling, is very modest given the market conditions that we're looking at right now. So we're pleased and feel confident that we're in a good position in terms of having our waste disposal needs taken care of in an efficient and financially sustainable manner. Our bulky waste appointment system continues, our appointment-based system continues to be utilized heavily. As of the other morning, we were closing in on 8,000 appointments made in this fiscal year. That's up almost 15% from the same time in fiscal year 21. So at this pace, we'll be approaching 10,000 bulky waste appointments for the fiscal year as it starts to pick up again in the spring as people start to do spring cleaning. The amount of solid waste that we handle in this city is remarkable. We are on pace to collect and dispose of probably over 8,500 tons of bulky waste for the fiscal year, collect over 14,000 mattresses, and probably in the area of 33,000 tons of municipal solid waste collected by our sanitation crews. We've also, over the past couple of years, there's been a significant sea change in recycling compliance and contamination rates and what some other countries are willing to accept from the United States in terms of recyclables and their level of contamination. This has had sort of a downhill effect on municipalities in terms of how clean their recycling loads have to be in order to be accepted, which is now much more stringent than it had been in the past. But we have worked as a department, along with the Mayor's Office and the Office of Community Engagement, to really try to get out in the community and increase recycling education. And as a result of that, we've seen our compliance and number of rejected loads, our compliance increase, our number of rejected loads decrease. But there's still a lot of work we have to do on that, and we will continue to do that in this fiscal year coming up. Our parks, we're continuing, the standard bread and butter maintenance of our parks, play areas, playgrounds, that have been so critical during this entire pandemic period. Our golf courses are performing well. Last year we had about 70,000 rounds played. This year, for calendar year 21, we were at about 65,000 rounds, which is still fairly strong, considering that we had these three serious tropical weather systems that came through in the summer that knocked out several weeks of golf that would have been probably around the peak of our season. So to only be down 5,000 rounds from last year is, I think, still a good performance. Our forestry division continues to maintain and care for our urban canopy, both on our streetscapes and in our park system and public spaces. We're doing a lot of plantings and garden displays, planters around downtown, and then work in the parks in terms of planting bulbs and other flowers. And on major maintenance projects, both in the parks and also to a certain extent around the Parks Division has been working in close collaboration with our other divisions, particularly the Streets Division, in terms of making sure that these projects are completed well. In forestry, we have the Tree Canopy Action Plan, which has been completed and adopted. We're working within the sort of the brackets of that plan and trying to expand the number of trees that we're planting on an annual basis. In 2021, we were approaching about 1,000 trees planted across the city. We're looking just this spring and doing another 500, and the spring season is actually the shorter of the planting seasons for trees. The fall season is more expansive, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to do additional significant tree plantings in the fall of this coming year. And they continue to respond to all of the 311 requests related to tree issues in the city. Our flood control system, we are still operating under the System-Wide Improvement Framework Plan through the Army Corps of Engineers. That is really a long-term plan that we're working through, and we're trying to stay in step with that going forward for the different activities that the Corps has asked us to undertake to maintain our standing within the eligibility for federal flood management funding, and for residents to have to be able to avoid the requirement to purchase flood insurance. So that has been a project that's been ongoing for quite a while and will continue not just this year but in the coming years as well. We're also doing a lot of work on the various pump stations we have to repair the electrical components, trash racks, stilling wells, other important pieces of infrastructure. We have a flood control system that is now approaching 90 years in age, so the maintenance and the repairs and upgrades are significant, and so we're doing I think doing a good job in managing that and keeping the system where it needs to be. In terms of strategic initiatives, a number of you'll notice here that a number of these initiatives are similar or are very much the same as previous years. Part of that is in looking at these are more than just 1 year strategic initiatives. These are things that we're going to need to not only continue to work on this year, but probably in years to come. And there are things that we really want to keep in the front of our minds every year when we're doing our work at DPW. This getting back to basics, which I had put in last year, that continues. We want, although I think we've made significant strides, there are still areas where we need to improve, and improving that quality and consistency of what have been traditional public works services is critical to us. The solid waste management situation in Hartford, although we have what I would say a 5-year solution, we need to start working on the 20-year solution while we have this 5-year sort of grace period, and not lose sight of the fact that solid waste management in the entire state requires a lot of additional work to get us to a sustainable point. We can always enhance our community outreach efforts and inform the community of different public works activities in more effective and comprehensive manners, and we will continue to do that in this coming year. From the issues that we had last summer, it's become clear to everyone that whether it's through climate change or infrastructure age, we have potential. We have flooding issues in the city that we need to focus on intensely and come up with solutions, both with our partners such as MDC and DEEP, but also at the federal level, to come up with solutions so that we don't face situations every year like we faced last summer, which was very damaging and traumatic to the community. We're also reviewing our street sweeping program and looking to make improvements regarding routes, signage, neighborhood outreach on the program. There are some things I want to change about our program where, perhaps some streets where there's very little litter or debris, we sweep them less often and focus more in the neighborhoods around uses that generate a lot more litter and try to hit those areas more frequently than perhaps we have in the past. So we're looking at that. The signage needs to be updated in terms of opposite street parking and things of that nature. So we want to make it a little less confusing for residents than I think it may be right now. Another huge focus for us this year was the traffic calming efforts that have been ongoing in the city. That again is something that I think is going to be a number of years in the works. Even though we have had a lot of success in implementing some of these quick hitting projects at different problem areas, these are still things that need to be designed and built, which are going to take some time. But that is going to continue to be our focus, working with our colleagues in development services to get more of that activity out into our neighborhoods and on our streets. And again, we hope, every year we strive to work cooperatively with all of the city departments, and for departments such as ours, we touch most of the other departments in the city in some regard in terms of operations or coordination. So we want to continue to do that going forward. Our budget for this year, the proposed recommended budget is a little over $19.1 million. That's an increase of about 6.6%. We have a significant increase in grants. Part of that is a couple of state grants and a flood control grant make up the lion's share of that $19.5 million. So that's up about a little over 26%. Some of the significant features of our budget are an increase in staffing of 6 recommended positions, and other increases in budget line items, particularly for facilities, where we've needed to make a significant increase in the amount of funding that we have for maintaining our facilities. Our facilities are aging. We have other properties that are coming into the city portfolio, former schools that are migrating from the Board of Ed's purview over to DPW, and we need the additional funds to be able to keep those buildings in good shape and not let them fall into deterioration. We also have our line item for seasonal employees, salaries for waste and recycling is slated to increase by $50,000. One of the things we found from using seasonal employees this past year is that it's a very good pipeline for entry into the permanent workforce at DPW. We've had a number of individuals who started out as seasonals who were then able to apply for maintainer 1 permanent positions and make that transition from seasonal to permanent employment. And well, you can have a job interview with someone, but one of the best ways to find out if they're a good fit for the job and are going to do well is to actually have them perform the job. And that's what our seasonal employees demonstrate their skills, and from there we can know who is really going to be a good addition to the department. So the use of the seasonal employees line item has been, I think, effective for us. We're going to continue to, as part of our work in this coming fiscal year, focus on service enhancements at the neighborhood level. We, either Petrel or I are basically at attendance at every NRZ meeting. We're trying to work with different resident groups, business organizations and the like, and other city departments in terms of really ascertaining the needs of folks in the neighborhood and trying to tweak our program and our work to serve them as best we can. The other thing that now that we've, a number of years ago, there was significant reduction in the number of public works employees, and now we've sort of built back to what I feel is part of this budget is a good level of staffing. Now we kind of have to turn the focus towards getting operational efficiencies from the staff that we have, and that just means improving processes, making people or enabling people to work more efficiently and coordinate better at the division level rather than simply just adding additional staff members, although the 6 that we have in this recommended budget are certainly needed. And a number of other items enhancing and increasing our parks and recreation facilities through the coordinated project management of our entire CIP team, which spreads across multiple departments. We continue to be as efficient as we can at keeping up our maintaining and repairing our fleet, as well as helping facilitate the purchase of new vehicles, not just for DPW, but also for the police department and all the other departments within the city that whose fleet of vehicles we help manage. And this continuation of a focus from last year as well of quality of life initiatives. That includes blight remediation, litter control, tweaks to our bulky waste system if they're needed, cracking down on illegal dumping, improving street sweeping, and improving our road maintenance. Those are some of the areas of focus that we're really going to be targeting this year. Again, we'll continue to use our pavement management principles to identify and prioritize different roads for milling and repaving. Stay within our SWIFT plan of action for our flood control system. And as I alluded to earlier, trying to expand the number of trees that are planted every year from the guidance of the Hartford Tree Plan and the Canopy Action Plan, which was passed in the recent past. So that about summarizes our presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Director Looney, for a great presentation. Councilman Majority Leader Clark, followed by Councilman LeBron and then Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Looney, thank you for your presentation. A few questions. What's the cost for your seasonal employees under this budget, proposed budget?
Through you, Madam President, the proposed budget that we have recommended here would have $50,000 in waste and recycling for seasonal employees and $70,000 in seasonal employees for the Parks Division. Those are the two divisions where we have primarily utilized the seasonal employees. Not saying that they couldn't work in other divisions as needed, but those are the two line items that we have for this budget.
So you said the 50,000 was for which division?
That would be for the waste and recycling division.
Waste and recycling, okay. And approximately how many bodies is that?
Well, right now, I believe we've had about 8 seasonal employees over the last couple of months. It would probably be somewhat less than that, maybe 6 or 7. I can probably get you an exact number if I go back and look at our figures for our employment for this year.
Please do. So is that 6 to 7 for each division or a total?
I believe that would likely be in total.
Total? And you referenced regarding the street sweeping program. How many trucks do we have in the city?
Right now, I believe we have 4 street sweeper trucks.
And do they operate at the same time?
Yes, they generally during the day will operate at the same time. At night, when we are on third shift and we're doing the sweeping of the corridors, we may only have 2 running at a particular night, not all 4, and of course sometimes 1 or more of them are down for repairs, so it does fluctuate a little bit.
And normally, what's the cost for a truck?
I can get you the exact number for that from our fleet manager.
And for a city our size, how many trucks should we, street sweeping trucks should we have?
Well, I don't know if there's an exact number based upon our city size that's perfect. I think every city is a little bit different. So I don't think we have a precise number of where we'd like to be in total, although this recommended budget does include an additional sweeper as part of the recommended ask.
Additional sweeper?
In addition?
So that's a hiring of a staff person?
No, it wouldn't require the hiring of another staff person.
Say that again?
I'm sorry, it wouldn't require the adding of an additional staff person.
Okay, so you're just going to shift somebody over to a street sweeper, or is that going to be an additional truck?
Once we have the truck, we can have one of our maintainer 4s operate it.
So right now we only have 3.
No, right now we have 4. With the addition of this one, we would have 5.
It would be 5, okay. And this has always been a struggle because we don't know what the actual schedule is for street sweeping. And I know that we have a huge littering problem in the city. Has there been any consideration, and we've talked about this until we blew it in the face, regarding putting more receptacles in high trafficked areas?
Yes, we have. We've been working with the Office of Community Engagement in doing a full inventory of what we call the mushroom trash cans that you see along the major corridors, and identifying where we might need more, and also identifying ones that are underutilized, which could probably be better utilized in another location where the litter is more substantial. So we have been doing that work. One of our supervisors from the sanitation division has been working with the Office of Community Engagement on that.
So is there some type of map that can be displayed? Because we receive a plethora of phone calls every week regarding a litter, and I know that you say that we have 4 sweepers, but sometimes I can only speak for myself, you hardly see them around in the neighborhoods, and I know that they're there, and they're supposed to sweep around the streets, I believe, during the same time as those zones during the sanitation run. But I think that if either there's more trucks that need to come online, we need to do more hiring, or it's just we need to figure out a system as to sweeping more than once a day in these areas.
So yes, there is a map that we can produce. I can certainly have our office get that to the City Council, and I agree and that's why one of our goals this year is to look at our street sweeping program and come up with some changes.
And my last question, traffic calming. What's the actual plan? I personally advocated for additional funds. I think it was about $100,000 for this current fiscal year for traffic calming. And I know that there were monies allocated in plans for the south end for additional traffic calming measures. And we were talking about more so coming north side. So are there any plans for this budget regarding traffic calming around North Hartford?
Yes, back in January, I prepared a presentation about what our next target areas were, and they included stretches such as Tower Avenue. The whole Blue Hills neighborhood, quite frankly, needs to be addressed. Garden Street was another one. There's still a few areas in the central and southern portions of the city, but a lot of what we were seeing as our next locations were up in the northern half of the city. So we're working with our traffic department, our traffic division was working with the folks in DDS in getting some of this moving forward.
So when could we expect to see some movement?
Well, I would expect there's movement going on kind of in the background right now, but I would expect to see more happening in the coming months as we go into summer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Actually, I'm just going to go down the aisle. Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti.
Caught me off guard there. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Director. Thank you, Assistant Director. Couple of things. The first one on page 24-3, and you mentioned it in your presentation, the down towards the bottom in program services, the LED light conversion. Now that we're done, what kind of savings are we seeing from that? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can certainly get you that number.
Okay. On 24-4, in the key performance measures, the lane miles of road paved annually. If we were at 28 and then we went up to 61, was that just like a stretch goal?
I think it was slightly a stretch goal, but there was coordination that had to go on with the utility companies. As you know, we have issues with coordination in terms of utility companies coming out and putting cuts in roads. And there is, I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of work going on in the roads in Hartford right now. We have tried to put in a better process than been used in previous years to reach out to them early before we got to the budget approval stage and before we got to paving season and say, tell us where you're going to be doing work and when, roughly is that going to be spring work, summer work, fall work, so that we can plan around you and not have a situation where we pave a road and then 2 weeks later, one of the utilities comes down and opens it up again. So I think, and again, I will go back and look at that and get you a more concrete answer, but some of that may have been from the coordination where we couldn't do roads that we were hoping we could do because of utility conflicts. Also, if we ended up if there was a road where we were hoping to do and it was 2 lanes in each direction, since we're talking about the 61 as lane miles, if we switch not only from that to a smaller street that is also only 1 lane in each direction, you just cut the lane miles in half right there. So that could probably be attributable to some of the decrease, but I will provide a more concrete answer.
Thank you. A couple more, Council President. And I know my colleague, Councilman Sanchez, will ask about some of this. Did I see in your presentation, or did I read it somewhere, the barn is done over at Goodwin, so we can do electric carts and then have a similar contract for Keeney and Goodwin on the golf carts?
Yes, that is the plan. I mean, right now we still have an existing contract with a company for gas-powered carts, but now we have the infrastructure in place where we can start moving forward and making that transition.
And then the last two. One is kind of a comment, but maybe you want some input. I know you struck on the street sweeping, and certainly great, but street sweeping, and particularly what I hear from residents, is only as good as the signage. And our signage, my mother would say, don't say this, it sucks. So how are we simultaneously kind of looking at the signage so people don't get caught in the position, and we can also do it, productively?
Yes, the signage is in need of improvement, and that's why we're working right now. Both our streets division and our traffic division are working with the Hartford Parking Authority to coordinate exactly how we're going to do that and how we're going to replace the signage and make it more consistent with what the actual operations are. I think this is sort of something that's occurred over the course of a number of years, where some routes were modified and perhaps the signage wasn't upgraded to reflect that, and we're sort of going back and cleaning that up. It's literally, we're going to have to go like street by street, and that's kind of what we're dedicated to doing.
Oh, believe me, I know. It's almost like you need to start from. And this last one, I just need you to get back to me at some point. I know in the CIP it talks about a consultant for the dredging at Bushnell Park Pond. Do we have some type of plan on not only just consultants on dredging, how we address all our ponds, and like what kind of timeline we do them on, and the cost of that? And I don't expect you to answer that today, but I'd love to know about that.
Yes, I can certainly provide you with that information.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome, Assistant Majority Leader. Councilman LeBron?
Good evening, Director Looney. I want to thank you for a thorough presentation. As I was writing down my questions, you were answering them in the presentation. Piggybacking off of Majority Leader Clark and Assistant Majority Leader Rossetti, in regards to litter, echoing the same sentiments, the waste receptacles that are movable, it seems some constituents have reached out to me saying that folks are moving them where they want them to. Are we having any consideration in terms of, because even if we put waste receptacles in certain places, if they're movable and they're being moved, then it's not adhering to what we want it to be. And so are we considering, more stationary receptacles, particularly in the high volume litter areas?
That's an excellent question, Councilman. I have thought about it. We, in the past, had more stationary fixed receptacles, some of the wrought iron ones that we're used to seeing. And what we found, I think, from past experience was that it takes longer for us to service those than it does for the mushrooms, which we can just bring our automated side loader truck with one driver who operates the robotic arm that grabs it, tips it and we can service more trash receptacles in the same amount of time. So from an efficiency and being able to, that allows us to put more cans out there, because the faster we can service them, the more we can pick up and the more we can have out on the street. So yes, I can understand that we've had all sorts of things happen to those mushrooms, quite frankly. We've had someone who's been burning them and melting them down that we've been working with HPD on. It's something that I think what the best solution is to stick with what we have, but our sanitation team who is out there servicing these cans, they have to report back to the supervisors that people are moving these and get them back in the right locations. And again, that's somewhat tedious work, but it's the work that needs to be done, because if the can isn't in the right location, it's not going to do its job. So.
And through you, Madam President, so in terms of traffic calming measures, constituents have also reached out to me and saying that they don't know what the speed limit is in Hartford. And I don't know what it is either, and I think that is from a lack of signs. Is there any efforts that are being done to show what the speed limits are in the streets?
Just recently, Council gave their approval to the city utilizing a state statute that permits us, and through your actions enabled my department to make changes to the speed limit. And we have a number of streets, and I can get you more specific information where the speed limits are higher. Generally, they're in the 25 mile per hour range, 20 to 25 mile per hour range. But we have a map actually that Development Services put together for us that we can supply to you. But I agree, there is confusion as to what exactly is the speed limit, and the way to improve that is through more signage. But I think what we want to first do is we've identified some of those streets that we feel action needs to be taken to reduce the speed limit from what the state has it listed as now. But once we do that, then we put the proper signage in place so that we don't end up having to change the signs twice.
Thank you, Director. And just a statement around that. At least the folks that have reached out to me in communities and neighborhood meetings, they feel that is intentional, the lack of speed limits, because it can ill-proportionately result in traffic stops for the police. And so whether that's true or not, I'm not saying that is, but the quicker that we can tackle that, the quicker that we can dispel narratives that or wrongly misplaced narratives. So next question, you mentioned, and again, if it's hard to hear, I speak for everybody here, it's hard to hear from me. So you mentioned that on this upcoming year, there is lighting for Hartford High. However, there's already lights at Hartford High. So how does that work in terms of the budget?
That is one of our CIP projects. I don't know if I misspoke or not, but there are ongoing improvements planned for Hartford High School, Hartford Public High School, in addition to what's been completed. I know the artificial turf field has been put down. I may have misspoke. It may not be the lighting, but there are other elements, I believe.
Yeah, so in terms of lighting, I think there are multiple opportunities for lighting. Using an example Councilman Gale gave me yesterday, providing the light shines different opportunities and, can generally change the landscape in nighttime. Is there any proposed lighting for other areas and parks? I'm talking about specifically Quirk Middle on Albany Avenue that will reduce the request that happens at Annie Fisher School. So anything of that nature, do you have allocated for this upcoming year?
Again, that's something that's in our CIP budget. I can certainly get you the exact information on that. I will say that one of the things that we've encountered and became very clear through our operation of the MyRec field reservation system is that when it comes to, for example, youth football, we really only have one lighted field in the entire city. And so it's not really a lack of fields necessarily, but it may be a lack of fields that are usable late in the fall because the sun goes down lower, and then also early in the spring for other activities. So I think we can get a kind of economy of scale by adding lights to existing fields, and it's certainly something that we've talked about and are looking into.
Thank you, Director. And I know that for the recyclables, you said that it's much more stringent now because it's reduced by 75%. And that has everything to do with the international policies around receiving recyclables, or is there some kind of national stringent in particular? Because it was only 3 years ago that we were being able to considerably increase our recyclable materials. So is it a combination of that, or is it marketing, or is it a lack of, community information in terms of understanding what can be recycled?
I think it's a combination of probably all those things, but the most significant thing would be the change in policy from China in terms of the level of contamination that they were willing to accept of recyclables coming from the United States. They ended up, the West Coast, all the ports, Long Beach, the bigger ports over on the western coast ended up backed up with loads of recyclables that just weren't accepted. And then that had the trickle-down effect first to the states and then to the municipalities. So that really was kind of a game changer. We've also, during the pandemic, I think we saw more contamination in the recycling loads just in general. Part of it may be just how people were getting meals and things like that might have changed during the pandemic. So there is an education component, and that has obviously China has not changed its policy and is probably not going to change its policy from anything I do. But what we've been focusing on, we've literally had our guys working on the back of the recycling trucks. When they see a can that's contaminated, they will go up to the front door and knock on it and talk to the resident and say, just want you to know that like this frying pan that you put in the recycling bin, we can't actually take that. So just if you don't do that anymore, you want to, and people have been our residents have been very receptive and thankful because, ultimately they just want the recycling picked up, and they don't want issues with it. So we've had a good response from that, and as a result, we have seen our number of tonnage per month on our Mira reports going up in terms of recycling. Not back to where I would like it to be, but we've kind of turned a corner, and now it's a slow climb back up to where we were before, hopefully.
So no pizza boxes in the recycling bin, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So aside from international and foreign policies and the things that we can control, do you feel that it would benefit us or DPW from having a outreach or a marketing campaign regarding recyclable to increase the tonnage? Would that be beneficial for your department?
Yes, and it's something that we're looking into doing. Actually, what we've done this spring is we use some of our funds to get truck wraps printed up, and we had our recycling trucks wrapped with this signage, which basically has the what's in, what's out language from the state. We had it's printed now on the trucks in both English and Spanish. So as the truck drives around, truck essentially serves as a movable billboard to what's allowed, so residents can see it as it stops and as it continues on its way. So that's a step that we've taken in terms of public outreach, and we'll look at other ways, other creative ways to get the information out.
Yes, and Madam President, just around the architecture. So the architecture line, is that just all in salaries?
Yes, I believe that's in the area of about $190,000, and that's correct. The salaries of our two architects.
Right. So the question that I have from 2001 in terms of salaries to the forecast in 2024, those salaries are going to nearly double. or it looks like it has a 75% increase. Can you explain as to, I mean, that is a considerable bump year over year for those 2 staff employees. Can you explain that, or, you know, let me know why that is?
I can get you additional information about that. I'm not sure off the top of my head why that is reading that way.
Yeah, particularly like when a lot of other departments have stood still, that is a significant bump. Now, with the architects, do you find that they're doing more, are they doing more project management or more design? Or is it a combination of both?
They're definitely doing more project management.
Project management?
Than actually designing projects themselves. Of course, the benefit of having them as project managers is that they have that architectural background, and so they are able to give their input in terms of issues of design, you know, and give intelligent feedback to our other contractors and engineers and outside architects who are designing some of these projects.
So in specifics, just using one example, last one, Madam President. I know you're probably texting me telling me to stop. So this is the last one, I promise. The T-ball field, particularly at Poe Park, right? What is the role of the architects in terms of supporting projects through our rigorous, sometimes laborious, intensive, like zoning and appealing procedures? So for example, the T-ball field went through multiple meetings, historic preservations, zoning, neighborhood stuff. I mean, I was on the phone for hours at a time. How is that the architect's job to see that project through? Are they consulting with the neighborhoods and the historic zones beforehand so projects don't have to go through that? Because my fear is that as we create projects and ideas, that if we're not consulting these entities that can ultimately block them, then it can block development or be a logjam towards development.
Well, in terms of the community outreach and then, of course, going through the permitting process, that is primarily on the outside contractor, the architect or designer who's putting the project together. Our architects and our project managers do try to help facilitate them through that process and help coordinate it. But it is an area, I agree, the public outreach component is important before you get to the actual permitting stage. So yes, that is something that we do spend some time on. I think we should spend more time.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for being patient with me.
Not at all.
Councilman Sanchez?
Good evening, Director Looney and staff. I just want to pick up, and by the way, thank you for the presentation. It was great. I just want to piggyback off real quick on the recycling. I know that the Hartford Solid Waste Task Force had worked with you to create and also with Janice Castle to create a sticker so that it'll help the homeowner and everyone else to identify what's the correct recycling throwaways that's allowed in the blue bins. Now, the last time we had a conversation, I guess we ran out of those stickers. Did we restart printing them and having them put on these containers?
Yes, I believe we did have another run of those stickers. I can confirm our inventory and provide that information to you.
Okay, and then and when you do you know if we're going to cover 100% of the home ownerships at the very minimum, besides the small businesses, as far as the amount of stickers we're going to put out there?
I think we would like to. It may be a little difficult to determine exactly which units are home ownership or have owners residing on site. We're certainly intending to get them out as substantially as we can to as many households as we can.
Well, and the reason why I bring this up is because some of the issues that I've been, or complaints I've been receiving is that many times these recycling bins, as the trucks go by, if they see, let's say, legitimate recycling bottles, whatever, in the recycling bin, the issue there is in a bag is no longer acceptable because it's in that bag. And I myself had to explain to my neighbors. So is there another process we can follow while we're waiting on those stickers for the trash collector to at least identify that at least it's clean recycling debris, and they can still take it rather than leaving it on the snow belt for the next following week?
Yes, that's certainly something we can examine and look into to what we can do.
All right, and then just another thing, in your budget, do you have funds allocated for a study on green technology and infrastructure such as, bioswales, rain garden, retention ponds, detention ponds, to alleviate the flooding issues specifically in the Blue Hills area and I would say the western part of New Britain Avenue? Do we have a study that's planned for this?
We don't have a study specifically for the western side of the city or examining bioswales or other low-impact development type procedures and infrastructure that could be used. We have applied for a grant through FEMA, and I believe we are just about should be hearing word as to whether we were given the grant or not. It was, I believe, a grant of about $750,000 that we were looking for to do a study of the sort of the watershed of the north branch of the Park River, particularly with our focus being on the Blue Hills neighborhood in terms of, it was actually a drainage study and trying to understand exactly how that whole geography, and again, not just Hartford, but the watershed isn't really concerned about governmental boundaries. It extends significantly into the West Hartford and Bloomfield and even farther up. We want to see what that says, because part of the reason is that if the Park River, if the north branch of the Park River is contributing to this problem that we're seeing extensively in the Blue Hills neighborhood, it may not just be Hartford's problem. And so if we have a good study that shows that, look, a lot of this is happening because of something up in Bloomfield, the fact that, Bloomfield has grown by X percent and has built a certain number of houses within the area that's impacting this, that there may actually be we might have some leverage to be able to look for a regional solution rather than Hartford having to carry the cost and the burden of the whole solution ourselves. We're not going to know that without having that study done. But I believe Frank told me that we were going to hear shortly about that grant. So that grant would fund that study, and that's something we're very eager to do and get out there and get the best information we can.
Will that study also include the topography of the Blue Hills area?
Yes, so the drainage study would include an analysis of the topography, is what role that plays in the drainage.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then just curious, how many RFPs does DPW has been issued out?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
How many RFPs has been issued out by DPW?
I would have to get that information and get back to you.
Okay. And so right now, your budget is including 16 new positions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and right now we have 217 positions.
Right now we have 211. We would have 217 as part of this recommended budget.
Okay, and then how many vacancies do we have in DPW overall?
As of this morning, I believe we had 18. We just filled a couple of positions in the last couple of days.
18. Okay. Has there been, and you really don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, okay? How long have we been down 18 plus average positions? And has it been the last 6 months, couple of years? Has it been difficult to fill those positions?
We have, I'd say, one or two positions that are just seem to be difficult to fill. One of them is our traffic services manager position. Just the nature of the position that we have and the responsibilities, a lot of potential candidates, I think, work in the private sector and are fairly high up in the hierarchy of their companies, and so their salary is significant. And that's been problematic. One thing I'm sort of hopeful about is that we may have a wave of retirements from the state, including the DOT there. So we may get some additional candidates that we might not have gotten in previous years. That position in particular has been tough to fill. The others, it fluctuates. You know, sometimes we'll go down to, at one point we only had 7 vacancies, and with 211 people, there's a lot of movement. You know, folks retire, other folks just decide to move out of state or leave for another job, or their significant other got a job somewhere else in the state and their economic circumstances change. 18 is generally higher than we've been. We're usually not up that high. I'd say we average probably about 11 or 12 in that range.
Okay, that's what I have. And through you, Madam Chair, my apologies.
Thank you. Councilwoman Surgeon, do you have any questions? Councilman Gale?
Thank you, and good evening to all of you. Picking up on that last question, are you able to identify any impediments to hiring that is preventing you or causing you problems reducing that 18 back down to your more regular average?
Well, right now, of the 18 positions, I think 7 are maintainer 3s and 5 are maintainer 1s. We have recently closed, or HR has closed the posting on the maintainer 1 jobs. We're going to be getting a certification list imminently, probably in the next couple of days. And we're going to be conducting interviews to fill those 5 positions. We already have maintainer 3 interviews scheduled. Petrel was working on that before she came over here. And Monday and Tuesday. So we should have those interviews shortly. So I'm hopeful that 18 will quickly go down closer to 10 or 12. For the maintainers, there aren't too many impediments. We get a lot of applications for the maintainer series. It's some of the more upper level superintendent, traffic service manager, someone who out in the private sector might, make significantly more, maybe a little bit harder to attract. But there are still, candidates out there. Our former traffic services manager, Jim Ford, had retired from private practice as an engineer and was just very excited about traffic and wanted to continue to work. And so there really weren't any impediments for him. So there are candidates out there. It's just making sure we do all we can to reach out through every possible avenue to find those candidates. So I don't know if there's really any really game-stopping impediments that we're facing right now.
Thank you. When you were talking about the maintenance of the city's fleet of vehicles, you mentioned the city vehicles and the police vehicles. And it strikes me that the Board of Education also has a number of vehicles. Do they maintain their own, or do we maintain the board's vehicles as well?
They generally maintain their own. There may be a couple of vehicles where we have done some preventative maintenance on, but primarily their fleet is separate from ours.
Has there ever been any discussions that having all the vehicles maintained in one place might produce some economy?
No, we really haven't had that discussion at this point, to my knowledge.
Last it's not really a question, it's a comment, picking up on an earlier question about speed limits throughout the city. My comment would be that among other things, I guess my comment would be, I don't know that I'm in favor of a speed limit sign on every block. We already have like more than enough signage of some things. I think people at some point just don't even look at signs anymore because they see so many of them sometimes. But I do think that if there was a sign on every street entering Hartford that says something like, unless otherwise posted, the speed limit on every street in Hartford is 25 miles an hour, that could be effective. So it's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gale. Councilwoman Hercules?
Just briefly, and thank you so much for your presentation and the important work that DPW does. Obviously, our DPW personnel interact with lots of hazards and contaminants, and I'm sure COVID only exacerbated that exposure. Could you talk a little bit about some of the safety measures that you've implemented for your frontline staff as a result of COVID, and maybe some things that you're going to keep in place going forward, and what the budget accounts for in terms of safety precautions?
Thank you. Our budget has generally, in past years, as it does in this recommended budget, provide the resources we need to protect our employees. A couple of things we've done, obviously during the pandemic. The hand sanitizing and the mask wearing, supplying those things, sanitizer and fresh masks frequently were a big part of what we did, and you know there were dollars specifically from the federal government to help cover that. We still have a very robust supply of PPE for our folks working out in the field and in close quarters. So that really hasn't been an issue. One thing that we're focusing on now is bloodborne pathogens. Everyone in the department who could potentially come across a sharp, which would be a hypodermic needle or any other sharp object that could potentially, if it punctured the skin, introduce bloodborne pathogens. Everyone's having their training on how to properly protect themselves and be aware of these things and how to handle these things if it's part of their job. We've also purchased sharps containers and for picking up and disposing of needles. The other thing in terms of safety, it's not really about so much from infection, but just from safety in general. We've recently made upgrades to our uniforms where we're getting more high visibility, high vis color uniforms, particularly for our sanitation streets crews who basically spend the vast majority of the day in the public right of way. As we've talked about extensively with the speeding issues and the traffic behavior that we're seeing, we just want to make sure our folks are as easy to see as possible and have that level of protection, the best level we can give them.
Thank you. And I know that Madam Deputy Director and I had the opportunity to talk about some of that, so I think that's great, and possibly looking into whether we can put some of those sharp receptacles inside of the parks even. Mm-hmm. One of the things that resonated on your presentation was the discussion about more district focused kind of implementation, and I'm wondering what strategically that would entail. So Councilman Clark talked about the 4 street sweepers. So would that entail more trucks like for each neighborhood? Would that entail like a maintainer lead on each neighborhood? So strategically, what does that look like to get more district focused in terms of DPW?
Again, with the addition of the new sweeper will be a big help to us. At least 2 of the sweepers are getting up there in years, and have to get repaired a little bit more often than the other 2. And just having that flexibility of having a 5th sweeper will be very big for us. I think we have the staff, and as part of this budget, I think the equipment to do what we need to do is just simply a reallocation of resources and change of focus. And that just really, to make that happen, you need to sit down and look, block by block through the city and figure out what makes a cohesive plan and how can we most efficiently deploy the resources that we have. I think a big focus for us going forward this year is as I pointed out in my presentation, is this increased efficiency. And you know, our employees, you know, they do their jobs. I like to think they do them well. But they're only, you know, they're given direction from us, Betrell and myself and our superintendents and the other heads of the division. So we as a leadership group have to really figure out how do we put our folks in the best position to succeed and do the best possible job for the city. And that's going to be one of our major efforts going through this fiscal year.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hercules. Councilman Mitchum?
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Director and Deputy Director, for putting in a lot of work and giving us this presentation. Let me start with the speed limits, because I feel like a bunch of folks talked about it. Well, Councilman LeBron talked about speed limits. I think Councilman Clark talked about traffic calming.
Can we raise the volume, excuse me, Councilman Mitchum, so that I can hear him? I can't hardly hear him.
I can also get a little closer if that helps. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
One thing I've noticed when all the bike lanes went in on Weathersfield Ave, the ones where the parking bumps out and then the lane is there, it took a really long time to get signs that explained that. And in fact, there's still at least one block where there's no sign, and you know, folks, it's kind of hit or miss. Maybe they'll park where they used to park, maybe they'll kind of park in the middle. And I know part of that is on parking enforcement, of course, but ultimately, you know, I was having a conversation recently with a traffic engineer. It's better if you just make it so they can't go there, right? Like in front of Buckley, there's that line of barriers. So I guess, is there a plan to just put some barriers to make it, or bumps or something that makes it a little clearer, also a little harder to park wrong? Because I mentioned that in the context of speed limits, because of course when you do that, you don't even have to put a sign. People just drive slower when the road is narrower. So is there a plan to make that more effective?
I don't know if we have a plan at this point. I know we have discussed the possibility of putting in some of those traffic delineator posts, certainly not at the density that you see in front of Buckley High School, but perhaps one every so often to at least create some sort of visual and somewhat hard barrier to the cars that are parking there, so that they don't park in that bike lane. But you know, it is true that a lot of that is an enforcement thing that we need to continue to work on.
And this is on a totally different topic. The bus shelters, not downtown, but like, you know, Park Street, Albany Ave, is that DPW or is that CT Transit who maintains those?
We've been trying to address those as best we can. We've had an ongoing dialogue with CT Transit about who is responsible for things like shoveling the snow, and we've not come to an agreement on that. And so what we're doing in the meantime is just making what improvements we can. You know, there are panels that are missing. We're looking to replace those panels. The graffiti, we've got a graffiti contractor who's going to be working on some of that stuff. So it's a little bit unclear as to who exactly is responsible, but at the same time, I'm of the opinion that you know, if there's something we can do, however small, to improve the situation until that gets resolved, we're going to do that just to make the city look better. That's kind of where we are on that. It's a complicated issue.
I gather you're being diplomatic about that dialogue. But so because my concern and what I hear a lot about is those panels, not just that they're missing, but sometimes they're broken. There was one on Capitol and Sisson that had like jagged edges for a long time. So that is something that DPW is just coming in and saying, all right, we're going to fix this?
Basically, yes, and there is money in this budget, in the facilities budget, to address that.
Okay, great. Jumping to a whole other topic. I am still hearing a lot after years from constituents about the collection of bulky waste, in the sense that when it's out on the curb, it stays out on the curb for weeks. For weeks, it just sits there and the snow gathers on it and then the snow melts off of it. And I mean, it seems clear to me from just talking to my neighbors that folks don't know what the process is to get it collected. And there's no easy way. They're not finding out, and so we continue to have a lot of blocks that just have stuff on them for ages. What's the plan to make that better?
Well, if it's on a lot, and that falls under our blight remediation team, and what has to happen is, because it's private property, we can't go on there and remove any material until we get some sort of legal mandate to do that, which we get from the Health and Human Services Department from the inspectors.
I'm talking mostly about on the sidewalk, like
Talking
by the
about
curb.
on the sidewalk. Some of what gets missed can get missed because of if there are cars parked in front of it, our guys cannot safely operate the claw to lift the material into the bulky waste truck, because if you're lifting it over a car and the couch slips out, you got a big liability right there. That's some of it, and some of it is we just need to do, I think, a little bit better job on discussing the situation when these situations come up with our drivers. And when Petrel and I get complaints about a 311 comes in about bulky waste being out for a while, we immediately send somebody out to address it. But I think, it's just more coaching of our drivers. If they're concentrating on their list of appointments and they're focused on the next address that they got to get to, and given the number of appointments we're seeing, they have a lot of appointments every day. And so they may be laser focused on getting to that next address, so the person who made the appointment isn't disappointed that they may not see something that's by the side of the road and may have been there for a while. But that's something that we've got to do, a good job of educating our staff.
And my last topic of any questions is the golf courses. I know I'm always harping on the golf courses. I also know that apparently they have been profitable in the last year, or at least break even, which is lovely to hear. I know also that was in some part because Massachusetts golf courses were less accessible during the pandemic. So we got a big bump of people coming to all our golf courses, which wonderful, something good should come out of the pandemic at least. But what's the plan if, God willing, the pandemic doesn't spike again and then we lose that edge? I think we've already lost that edge. Are there what else is the plan so that we don't go back to, blowing many thousands of dollars on a service for the suburbs, mostly for the suburbs?
So right now, the golf courses, as you saw from my presentation, the number of rounds played was down. Part of that was just this horrific weather that we had last summer and early fall. But yes, 2020 was sort of an outlier with the pandemic, and as you mentioned, Massachusetts not really allowing golf for a considerable period of time, we were able to pick up those extra rounds. At this point, what that has actually allowed us to do is build up a pretty healthy budget in the Golf Enterprise Fund. In past years, we, going back into, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, we always had to rely on that line item in the general fund budget to help sort of refund the Golf Enterprise Fund. It's now gotten to the point where even after going through the winter when we basically have very little revenue and still a lot of expenses, the situation that used to really drain down the Golf Enterprise Fund, we're coming out of the winter with $500,000, $600,000 still in there, and that's when we're at the point right now where our revenues start to rapidly exceed our expenditures as we start to get into the peak of the golf season. So right now, I think our goal for this year is for break even. We did turn a profit based upon my analysis for 2020. And primarily that was due to the fact that for a lot of that time, golf was the only outdoor recreation that a lot of people could take part in. So our plan going forward is really to work with the Golf Commission and work through our golf management, our golf operations manager, Bill Rosenblum, on getting more active, not only in the regional market in terms of promotion and things like that, but turning a little bit more inward and trying to grow the game of golf in Hartford. That has been, an issue that we've discussed extensively this year, is how do we get more folks from the community engaged in our golf courses and take ownership of the asset, rather than it being seen as something where, people from outside of Hartford come and they play and they leave and that's it. So that's been a big focus. That's actually a standing item on each golf commission agenda, is what the ongoing efforts in terms of outreach into the Hartford community are.
That was my next question. Is there, and forgive me because I was looking at other budget things about this while that was up and it was hard for me to see, but is there like a set aside budget-wise within your budget that is specifically about community outreach or creating more significant discounts? Because I talked to the manager of the program, and I think the membership is still, the resident discount is still like $1,000. That's a lot of money. And he said, we might have loaner clubs for people who want to come try it out. It feels like those are things. And I said, well, are you advertising in Spanish? He said, well, we might do that. Like, is there a concrete plan to say, to promote in Spanish, to promote in the neighborhoods, and to make it easy for someone who doesn't know from golf to come in and, there's a loaner set of clubs, there's stuff so that they can get into it and get hooked if that's what's going to happen?
Yes, these are all ideas that we've been throwing around with the Golf Commission and with other folks internally within DPW. We're actually in the process of crafting a draft budget for the golf operations for fiscal year 23 right now, and addressing those issues is something that we're going to look at our budget and see what we're able to do, and we certainly have those in mind as we're starting to put the numbers together for the next year.
And my last question, and I say that for your benefit and for my colleagues, because I think I'm the only person keeping us here at this point. What rules or practices are in place, new, or could be in place to get the folks who manage the courses, sort of those contractors, well, I guess it's one contractor, or I don't know if the restaurants are separate, all of them, to hire Hartford residents? Because when I talked to the golf operations manager, it was sort of like, we're urging them to, between equal candidates, give preference to Hartford residents, which, that's a pretty soft requirement and hard to police. And as you know, there have been some concerns about the way folks who work in some of those places have responded to Hartford residents who are patronizing the places. So what are the plans to make those spaces reflect the city better?
So actually, at this point, the two restaurants, I believe, they may have as many as 50% of their employees. Again, they're small operations. 50% of their employees are Hartford residents, or some percentage thereabout. This was something that Bill Rosenblum, the golf operations manager, and I were looking into this winter. And in fact, as part of the extension of the agreement with the operators of the tavern at Keeney Park, there was some language added in terms of hiring locally and sourcing materials locally as well. There are other ways to patronize Hartford businesses, and it was met very receptively. We did not get much pushback, so that's encouraging. Also, our superintendent, who are superintendents for the golf courses, they do the maintenance for both courses, the Gilmets. They have an agreement with Knox Incorporated to use Knox as a pipeline for labor for the maintenance of the courses. And actually, we've struggled in past years to get full employment In terms of maintenance on those courses, we've struggled to get applicants, but the Gilmets and Knox have really been working hard at this, and now we actually are at a point where I believe both golf courses are fully staffed from a maintenance standpoint, and all of those folks who are working are coming through Knox. And I believe, and I can confirm this for you, but I believe they are Hartford residents.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. So I have a couple of questions. Our street sweeper, we have 2, correct? And they're fully functioning?
We have 4, and right now I believe all 4 are operational.
Okay, could you send a schedule to council on the days they're out?
Yes, could certainly provide that.
Thank you. My other question is, maintainer 1 and 3, can you just tell me the difference between a 1 and a 3?
Sure. I'm sorry. I should have explained that earlier.
It's okay.
Maintainer 1s are basically our entry-level position in the maintainer series. They're essentially what in past years you might have referred to as a laborer. They're the folks who work on the back of the garbage trucks. They form the kind of the backbone of our custodial services and the maintenance of our facilities. They also work in parks, in the blight remediation team, and I'm trying to think if there's any other those are really primarily the divisions that they work in. So they are, doing all manner of different physical labor tasks, cleaning up blighted properties, again, working on the sanitation trucks, working at the public safety complex to maintain that facility and keep it clean. So that's sort of like the entry-level position. Maintainer 3s, they can do all the work that a maintainer 1 does because you're always able to work below your class according to the CBA, but they have to have a commercial driver's license, a Class B license, and that enables them to drive some of our heavier equipment, such as particularly our dump trucks, which then double as the plows during the winter. So our plow drivers are primarily maintainer 3s. We have some maintainer 4s who have a CDL Class A, which is an additional step up in the commercial driving license hierarchy and allows them to operate bigger things such as the sweepers. Sweepers are driven by our maintainer 4s. So the maintainer 3s they do a lot of driving of heavy equipment. They also are the drivers for our sanitation trucks. But they also do physical labor stuff, mowing grass in our parks, particularly operating the larger mowers with the wider cutting base and with some of the attachments that allow them to do slopes and things like that, not just the small zero-turn mowers. But so they do a variety of tasks, but they also have the specific classification that allows them to drive heavier pieces of equipment.
Thank you. So would you say that the maintainer 1s are also responsible for cleaning the HPD vehicles?
Our HPD vehicles they're all handled by our light equipment mechanics. Handle those, the cruisers and some of the SUVs and things like that. Those are all taken care of by our light equipment mechanics.
So then would it be a correct statement to say then those individuals are responsible for cleaning the vehicles and disinfecting them for HPD?
During the height of the pandemic, we did have a program in place where, using overtime, we had 1 or 2 mechanics stay on for certain set hours, and when cruisers wanted to come in to get disinfected, particularly after they may have had a passenger that they had in the vehicle, they could come into 40 Jennings into the yard, and one of our mechanics would come out and would basically wipe down the whole vehicle.
I see. So the 18 positions that you have available in DPW, did you state that they were maintainers 1 and 3s, mostly?
I believe it was 7 maintainer 3s and 4 or 5 maintainer 1s.
Okay. I just have a couple of more questions. So, and enlighten me and bear with me. This is educational for me. So we have our what we refer to our garbage trucks, right? That pick up our rubbish. Are all of our trucks equipped with what they call, what is it, the handles, the bars that literally, or the arms that pick up the garbage cans, the rubbish cans?
The side loaders, the ones with the automatic arms. We actually have 4 of those vehicles, and this budget includes a 5th sidearm vehicle, automated side loader truck.
Okay, and so how many trucks do we have?
Just in the sanitation fleet, I could get you the exact number. It's
10, 15, 20?
more than that, probably over 20.
So out of all of those, only 5 of them have arms?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So would you say that we have a lot of workers' comp claims because of picking up these heavy trash cans?
Our workers' comp claims tend to be spread across the divisions fairly equally. And we have, wherever you have more employees, you're statistically probably going to have more workers' comp claims. And we do have some claims from employees who have been lifting trash receptacles. We've had several of those while I've been director. So yes, it does happen, but we also have similar type workers' comp issues in other divisions.
Okay, and so these trucks that have these arms, is this an equipment that we can buy and put it on the other trucks, or do we have to buy brand new trucks with these arms?
You really need to buy the whole unit, the whole truck.
Okay. Okay, Director Looney, that concludes my questions. I have other questions, but I'll just send you an email, okay?
That's fine. Thank you, Madam
Yes.
President.
Yes, and so Councilman Sanchez, you have one last question?
Yes, just one more question, and through you, Madam President. I'm just curious, so with DPW, we have the blight remediation team at $479,100,000. And development services, we have a blight remediation team, and that's so that's for a total of 10 full-time employees. With the development services, we have blight remediation team, 4 full-time employees at $279,000. Health and Human Services, we have another blight remediation team at $79,000 for 2 full-time employees. What's the DPW's role when it comes to the blight remediation?
So our specific role is once properties have been deemed blighted and the inspectors have done their work, and the packet of information that has been, contact has to be attempted with the owner to fix the condition. If they don't respond within a certain period of time, we have the legal authority to then go on site and do the cleaning. We do our guys in DPW do the actual cleaning, the cutting of the grass, the removal of the debris. And they also go around and maintain city-owned properties, vacant lots that we may have picked up through tax foreclosure and the like. So they have those properties as well that they have on a rotating schedule that they maintain.
Okay, thank you. So basically, you guys provide the labor workforce?
That's correct. I'd say that's correct.
And then the other 2, I'm assuming, are inspectors?
They're more in the inspection and the legal side of going after the blight problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Director Looney, thank you to you and the members of your staff for an excellent presentation. And this OMBGA committee will be in recess until tomorrow at 5:30. We will resume presentations from the Department of Board of Ed and the Hartford Police Department. Thank you. So we are now recessed. Good night. HPD tomorrow night? No, fire. Did I say HPD? I apologize, the fire department.